This is Luann here with EveryStem, and today I am talking to Courtney Zuber, the owner of Cone Flower Designs. She has been a member of EveryStem for just about a year now. She was one of our very first members, and we are so happy to have her here to talk about how she has changed her business and transformed her business by saving time, having less waste, using EveryStem. So I'm really excited about hearing what she has to say today. And welcome, Courtney. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk about EveryStem.
Tell us just a little bit about your business and where you're located.
Yeah, so I'm located in Salado, Texas. I've been in business for about 4 years. We actually just celebrated that last month. We specialize in weddings and events only, and EveryStem has kind of been a game changer for us, honestly, with not just me personally, but my team and getting organized and profit margins and all the things.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations on your anniversary. That's so exciting.
Yeah.
So before you started using EveryStem last year, how did you handle ordering doing recipes, if you did recipes or ordering flowers? And then how did you handle kind of communicating all that to your team that's working for you?
Yeah, so definitely everything was handwritten. Like we didn't use like Excel or Word or anything like that to help us. We would get pricing from the wholesaler, and I would just sit there and create the recipes in my head, put it all down, do all the math, all that fun stuff that everybody loves to do. Yeah, we did that, and then after a while, it was just time consuming. I was spending an hour and a half, 2 hours on one event, and I just assumed there had to be something out there, and then I found you guys, and it totally changed how we did everything. And so we, decided like, we'll just try it for a little bit. It's so cost effective that, even if that wasn't the right system for us, I didn't feel like we were losing so much money because, there's other companies and other softwares that are like a few $1,000s, and that's a big investment for a small business. But, we just implemented it, and we realized that we weren't losing as much product. We were spending less time working on recipes, and is getting our team organized with everything, after we would print out recipes and all that.
And you were probably spending an hour, 2 hours per wedding writing recipes and creating them. Now, how long does it take you that you've been using EveryStem for a while?
So it takes about 10 to 15 minutes. And we actually have, it's amazing. I actually have one of our team members that goes in and creates the event in EveryStem, and then she'll add flowers. She'll input all of the, line items, how many bridal bouquets or bridesmaids bouquets, the bridal bouquet, all of that. And then she'll get pricing, she'll update it in the library, and then I'll go in and spend about 15 to 20 minutes creating all the recipes.
That's so great. So having a team member who you can train to do some of those things for you has probably really alleviated your time so that you can spend your time as a business owner doing more important things. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's been really great. And I'm slowly training her on how to build the recipes and get her a little bit more comfortable with it. And she actually just started working in the studio because she was remote the whole time. So now she can actually see the product and know stem count for how many stems come in a bunch and all that good stuff. So it's been really great.
That's awesome. And so when you use EveryStem, you're using it for your pricing and your ordering. But as far as a CRM, you're using Honeybook, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So can you tell some of our, people who are watching now are probably interested in possibly joining, and they want to understand kind of how that process works. Tell us a little bit about the process from when you start to meet with a client or you have an inquiry, and kind of how you use Honeybook, and then when EveryStem comes into the picture, how you kind of use those together.
Yeah, so I feel like you can use EveryStem on the front end and the back end. For us, it works better on the back end. So when a bride inquires with us, they'll go through our website and it automatically creates their profile in Honeybook. So we'll go in, they fill out the questionnaire, they tell us everything they're needing. We send the quote to them based off of their budget. So we calculate pricing and all of that based off of their budget. And so once they book, then we'll go to EveryStem and create the recipes like that. But say if there's an install that, we're using flowers we're unfamiliar with, that we're not really sure about pricing, then we'll get pricing from the wholesaler, implement it into EveryStem first, build the recipe that way, and then charge the client. So like I said in the beginning, we've been doing it for almost 4 years now, or over 4 years, that we're familiar with a lot of the flowers and pricing and things that we use often, that we can do it on the back end instead of the front end. So that's just what works for us. But I know some people build their recipes first and then bill their client for it.
You can put a price in that you've already charged your client,
Mhm.
and you can work backwards, building the recipe to fulfill to that amount. And so when you do it that way, it's really nice because, I've charged this customer, $300 for this design, and I have to keep my recipe within that limit.
That, in my eyes, works better because the client is already comfortable with that price that you presented them with. So we know, like, okay, 300 is their, like, max price point for their bridal bouquet. Like, we can create that design based off of that, instead of saying like, oh, actually, if we use this flower, we're going to have to up it to 350. Like, it's just, I think getting that price to them first, it makes more sense.
I know you mentioned earlier when we were talking before we started recording that you feel like you have less waste, and that you feel like you have, not that you weren't really profitable beforehand, because doing it by hand, you're still profitable. You don't know maybe exactly the numbers until you spend some time going back and really doing that. But how has having that profit summary and that information at your fingertips kind of changed the way you feel about, your profitability and having less waste?
Yeah, I would definitely say that that's been one of the key features that I love the most about it, just because you can really see your numbers and like where exactly you are with things. So like if I'm, priced a wedding, I do the recipes, I'm like, shoot, like, our profit margin is under 50%. Like, I know that I need to charge more, for these specific flowers and these designs and everything. But now, I mean, our main goal and what we, strive to achieve is 65% profit margin or higher. Like, that's what I like. And I like that it, automatically calculates it to where you can see, exactly where you are. And of course, having less product over at the end is always a goal, I feel like, for all florists. We don't want to throw flowers away or waste anything. So that's been really cool to see too, is that we only have, 4 stems of roses left over at the end. Like, it tells you exactly, how much you're going to have left over. And even if you do, you have a little bit of cushion for like damaged product that comes in, or, things like that, which is super nice.
A happy balance between enough product to cover the designs and make sure you have enough to fluff and fill in. We know everything, flowers, they get damaged in transport and things like that. So having enough to kind of fill it in, but then also, keeping it really accurate and making sure that you're not left with like bunches of flowers is really important too. So that's great.
Yeah.
So if there was a new member who was just starting out, I know that when you started, EveryStem was very new. So I think we have a little bit more of I think we have more tutorials. We have a welcome email series that goes out to new members now that I don't think you got when you first started, because we were just a baby. And so, so if you figured it out then, new people can figure it out with all the extra tutorials and help that we offer. What would you say to somebody who was going to be starting out, thinking about joining? Did you start your library first and then kind of start creating events, or did you build your library as you started? What would you kind of tell somebody about how you got started and kind of where you are now?
Yeah, I would definitely say whenever I first signed up, I was a little intimidated, because it is a big change and you really do have to put the work in first to see the results. Like, you really have to take the time. You have to build your library the way that it makes sense for you or somebody else to add flowers to your events. So I think in the very beginning, I was building, the flower library. I was saying, Playa Blanca roses, 50 centimeters, things like that. Well, then I started dividing it out by wholesaler. So like, you can choose, your wholesaler, but then to make it easier for somebody else doing it besides myself, I would really be specific on how I wanted that. So it did take me a little bit longer to set the library up, but now looking back, I'm like, this is great. There's no confusion on any of it. But I would say in the beginning, it did take a little bit to implement it, but it's awesome. I mean, you can put however many wholesalers, if you use Amazon for things, if you go to Hobby Lobby, like I know we, have little like hair clips that we get from Hobby Lobby, or whatever kind of supplies we get from Amazon, like all of that pricing is in there. So the girls know, or like my team knows, like, okay, like these are our recipes, like you need, a Hobby Lobby hair clip. Like everything is so specific. So if I'm not there, they know exactly what to grab. And yeah, I mean, I think, in the beginning, it's just going to take some time, but it is very, very helpful. And it is a game changer.
There aren't that many new flowers that, that come in. Maybe you're adding a few things here or there. Maybe a new variety of something comes available that you want to use. So you add that. Or maybe you do have a new type of, you need a headband that you haven't ordered before, or something more like a mechanics item. But now that that library is in place and you have someone on your team kind of helping you to start creating those events, I think that definitely sounds like it's been a game changer because you're already set up. So there is that work on the front end, but it definitely pays dividends.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, you do it once and it's in there, it's saved, it's ready to go. And then obviously if there's a shift in pricing, then you can just update it really quick. But I think honestly, one of my other favorite features is the stem count, or you can do it by stem or you can do it by bunch, which I think is great because you're also educating your team on how items come, because there's some roses that come, 12 stems to a bunch, but normally they're 25, but then they can start to understand like, okay, like these varieties only come 12 stems, or, this comes 10 stems to a bunch. So I think that's like a really good kind of selling point too, is if you're trying to train your team, that you do have this flower library that they can go back and look if they're confused on how things come. Because I know a lot of our team members are new, like they've never done this before. So they're kind of the guinea pigs with it too, that I'm like, okay, like go look at EveryStem. Like, how do you think it comes? Which is super helpful.
We really don't think about how some of these things can affect our team. So when you're doing it by hand, you're really not able to train your team on things like that because you're just kind of writing it on by hand, on a scrap piece of paper. And then you're probably really not transferring that information or that knowledge over to your team.
For sure.
So using the tool gives you that opportunity. That's super cool. And then also, if you're not there, I mean, you have a business where you're doing several weddings every weekend. So if you can't be there for some reason, or you have some sort of an emergency, how does EveryStem does it make you feel more comfortable knowing that you have that all written out? And if something happens, you would be able to just give that to your team and let them run with it?
Yeah, for sure. And that was the other thing I was going to mention, is that like now that we're growing and we're big, like I can't be in every place at once. I would like to. I'd like for there to be like 10 of me, but I can't. So having that, like the girls know exactly what's been ordered. They know what should come so they can compare it to the invoice that we get from the wholesaler. So I always have them, checking all the product, and I'm like, okay, compare it to the invoice that we first sent when we ordered it. So then what items are missing, or if anything's damaged, like they know like, okay, we have 4 stems to spare. Like if we lost 2 during processing, then like we're still good. We're not going to be out anything. So I think, yeah, definitely being gone now and being busier, like my team knows like what to do. And if something is broken, they can tell me right away versus, waiting until the end of the day. And then we lost a whole day of trying to replace product or, making the adjustments that we need to. And like I said, educating my team on things too, because I always tell them, I'm like, what if I wasn't here? Like, how are you going to handle this? Like, what are you going to do to figure it out? Like, we can't just like postpone the wedding. Like, we have to figure out how to get new product or, whatever we have to do. So I try to tell them, like, pretend I'm not here. Like, try to figure it out. Come to me with a solution first, and then we'll figure it out. And that's really helpful to have all of that really detailed out for them.
And that also empowers your employees, because then they feel like they don't have to run to you with every question. You're asking them, okay, I'm happy to kind of make sure that we're going on the right direction, but that, your team members have the authority and the freedom to make those critical decisions. And then, yes, confirm with you that they're correct, but you're not kind of having all these little micromanaging moments in your day where you're distracted from the things that you need to be doing, like selling more weddings or whatever it is that's top level. and they're able to handle some of those things without you having to get involved, you know.
Which has been hard. I mean, it's hard because, you know, my company's my baby. So I'm like, I'll handle everything. Like, it's fine. Like, I can handle it. But now that we're growing, it's just, I can't. So it is nice to know that my team can figure it out without me. But yeah, I mean, it literally, I keep saying it's a game changer, but it really has been like, so like, I don't know, completely transformed how we do things and our systems. And I don't know, I just really like it. And the price, like, you can't beat like the price of what it costs to invest in it.
You know, being a florist myself, I totally understand, you know, that if you have Honeybook already, or you have another CRM that you really enjoy using, and you combine EveryStem with that, you know, you can use Canva for some visual things or Pinterest for some visual things. And then you really have everything you need without having to spend thousands and thousands of dollars, you know, on software that, you know, maybe is more complicated than you want, or, you know, all in one is nice, but because EveryStem doesn't do the mood boards or proposals or invoices. But, you know, with Honeybook being affordable and EveryStem being really affordable, combining those two.
And I think that, honestly, I think if one system, this is just me, like my opinion about it, I think if one system did all of that, that I know for myself that I would probably be very overwhelmed with it, just because that's so many things in one. Like, you have your invoicing, you have your mood board, like, and for some florists, I mean, that might work great for them, but obviously for us, like, having two separate things is super helpful. And you can just strictly focus on just recipes for this. Like, we know that Honeybook is for invoicing and proposals and everything. So, I mean, and the price, like a small business, like, it's so costly to start up and to keep it going. Like, you know, you want to try to, you know, get the best tools and stuff to use, but sometimes you can't afford it right then and there. So I think keeping the price affordable was the best option.
You feel like it's worth the money that you're paying.
100%.
That's awesome. Yeah. And so the tangible results, I know you've talked about you're saving, you know, probably between an hour and an hour and a half at least per wedding, just on the recipe time you're spending. Your employees are more effective because they're spending less time kind of trying to ask a bunch of questions. So they're probably being more efficient with their time. Are there any other kind of like tangible results? I know you're having less waste, fewer flowers left over. Anything else that you'd want to share with anybody as far as like tangible results of what you've seen?
I think like also seeing the back end of the numbers. Like, I know we briefly talked about that, like that 65% profit margin is like my goal every time, because I'm like, okay, this is how we're going to make money. Like, we're not going to use as much product. We're not over ordering. We're not spending as much time saying, if we are over ordering, we're not spending as much time processing, just to have products sit in the cooler. So I think really honestly seeing the numbers, and not just the profit margin for that, but you can see like, okay, this is how much we're losing. This is how much, you know, maybe we're overcharging for things that we didn't realize in the beginning. So I would say, yeah, I mean, the profit margin, you know, spending less time on it, less waste, and my team really being able to handle things without me. Cause like my team is out in the studio right now pulling things, and I'm like, you guys know what to do. Like, you don't need me, like, be confident. And I always tell them, I'm like, you can ask me a million questions. I'd rather you ask me questions in the beginning and as you go than just assume things, because it's most likely probably not going to be right. And then we're going to have to fix it. But yeah, I mean, just those few things, like you said, I mean, are just great.
Exactly. It sounds like working for you would be a lot of fun. I like how you kind of give them the authority to do what they need, but then, you know, you're also very communicative in saying, if you have a question, let me know so that we can figure it out together. I think that's a really important part of growing a team. And a lot of young designers who are either starting out in the business, or maybe they've had a business for a while, but now it's growing like yours is, you really can't, you know, I think one of the first times we met, we talked about choosing to grow a business and what it takes to really expand a team and start to grow. Because like you said, if we could clone ourselves, you know, if I could clone myself, I probably would still own my flower shop, right? You know, but I decided that it was time for me to move on from that because I had done it for so long, and I was like, okay, I can't clone myself. I'm ready to try something different.
Yeah.
But having a team is a big piece of running a business, and being able to, trust the people that work for you, letting them trust you, having confidence in each other that you're doing the right thing. There's a lot of elements to that. And so I think being able to kind of share that with other designers that are listening to this is super helpful, because a lot of designers are just starting to hire freelancers.
Yeah.
Or they're thinking about hiring an assistant, even somebody who works remotely. Like you said, one of your team members used to be remote. Having that confidence to let some of those things go off your plate and delegate is a lot just in itself.
Yeah, it definitely didn't happen overnight. I'm very OCD about my stuff. I'm like, I'll just do it. Like, it's fine. But like you said, in order to grow, I have to expand. I have to let go and trust my team. And it's not, people tell me all the time, like, oh, you just play with flowers. I'm like, yeah, we play with flowers for like 30 minutes. The other time is spent prepping and ordering and doing so much more that people actually have no idea what all goes in, to making an event happen in a wedding. And it's not, some people, I feel like they can come in, they grasp the concept, but a lot of the time it takes a while to train somebody to really understand how to design. And you can't just start designing. You have to know, like, okay, this is how we have to process these specific flowers to ensure that they last longer. Like, and people don't know that. So it's definitely not like a hobby. It's not like a DIY florist over here. Like, it's a straight up legit company where, you need to watch your numbers and really, line item everything to make sure that you're being profitable.
Yeah, I think that margin, you can really see, especially using EveryStem, you've probably seen that, there are those few things when you get into making a few changes to a recipe that make it go from a 65% margin to a 60% margin. People might think, oh, well, 5% profit margin isn't that big of a deal. But you, as a business owner, that is going to come probably from your paycheck or your profit, because everything else still needs to get paid, right? You still have to pay all your employees. You still have to pay all your vendor bills, all your supplies. So that 5% is coming from you,
Exactly. Like, you're down here and everybody's up here, everything else. But yeah, I'm trying to put it into words, but it's like hard. I'm like, everybody just needs to try it. Like, I would just tell people, I'm like, just give it a chance. And like, I will say in the beginning, when I first started, like, it just sat there for a while because I was intimidated. And I know you reached out a few times, like, do you have any questions? I'm like, oh yeah, no, it's fine. But then once I like started doing it, I'm like, this is amazing. Like, this is just so easy. And especially up front, like, if you do have some downtime, then people can, input flowers into there and supplies and everything, while you're still, carrying on your events and everything like that. So I feel like it's very user friendly too, which is super nice. Cause I know some softwares can be very overwhelming and confusing. And I'm like, why did you even create this when nobody knows how to use it? But yeah, I love it. Very grateful for it.
I'm so glad to hear that you felt like, once you did start using it, that it didn't take you, how long would you say, and you might not remember this, Courtney, but how long would you say from when you actually really started getting into it to when you started feeling more comfortable and saying, yes, this is something that's like, how long did it take you to realize that it was the right fit for you?
Yeah, I would say, honestly, it may be like a week and a half, 2 weeks, maybe, when I like first sat down and started creating the library and everything like that. And then I just did kind of like a mock event. I know there's a sample event in there when you first start it, which was really helpful because I was comparing that to like the one that I was making up, to kind of just play with it and see how everything worked. I would honestly probably say like a week and a half. And then I was like, all right, we're doing this. No more writing recipes and losing money or product or anything like that. Yeah.
That's great. And the handwritten thing, I know I was talking to another designer the other day, and she said, I used to handwrite everything. And she said, there were times where I would have it written on this one paper for my wedding order or my event order, but then because I was doing everything by hand, it didn't actually end up on my order. Mm-hmm. And so, with EveryStem, if it's in your recipe and you export it, it's going to get on your order, which is, that's important too. I think just making sure you have that comfort of like, there is a lot of human error. And I mean, you're human, you're inputting it into the system. So it's possible that you could have an error, but I think it really minimizes the opportunity for some of those handwritten mistakes.
For sure. And I would say definitely exporting. Like that's one thing I don't think we've talked about. Like you can export it as a PDF to your wholesaler, to all the different wholesalers. You can print out just the recipes, or you can print out like a detailed list of everything with the whole event. So I know for us, when we send our order sheet to the wholesaler, like I'll screenshot it, exactly what we need to send to them, so they know like, okay, these are our items, and I make it easier for them because they don't have to open up a document in the email. So I'm like, that helps them save time and, a little bit easier for them. But then sometimes, the wholesalers are super busy where they can make mistakes inputting items too. So whenever we get an email back from our reps, like my girl who works remotely will go and compare what we sent to them to make sure that like the sim count and everything's good. But I think, like you said, that human error in the beginning, you have a typo, like that can completely, mess you up. Whereas, now it's the computer system handling all of it, that there's really not a lot of room for error. So I'm pretty, like I said, I'm pretty OCD and specific about things, that we quadruple check everything, and everything's color coded and colored buckets. Probably a little too much, but honestly, that's what works for us.
But everybody's on the same page, and it's very clear, especially when you have a team working with you. That's important, because then when somebody new comes in, you kind of get the lay of the land probably a lot faster than if things weren't as organized, So
yeah, and I think too, you had mentioned it earlier, like taking on multiple weddings in one weekend. Like you could have 4 weddings and they could all be the same exact color palette. And of course, like I know, like, okay, no, this is Ashley's wedding, like this is Jamie's wedding, because of this one different type of greenery. Whereas my team doesn't know all that information. Like they haven't been looking at it over the course of months. So having like every event has a clipboard, every event has a color, so they already know, everything is handled that way. But yeah, I mean, it's, ever changing, but EveryStem's there, man.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us. And I'm so glad that you found EveryStem, and that, now that you've been using it for, I guess it's been just about a year, maybe a little less, that it's really kind of something that's just built into your workflow, and that you find it really helpful. That makes me happy, because I created it really with the intention to help people, because I knew that just from my experience as a freelancer and as a floral designer and a business owner, that this is a common issue that we all struggle with, whether we use Excel or we handwrite orders. There's just a lot of room for error. And so, building this software for people to be able to use, and getting the feedback like what I'm getting from you today, is just really nice, because I'm so happy that you love it and it's helping you.
Yeah, I mean, I tell everybody about it. I mean, I know I told you that I was on TikTok and was telling, a designer up in Pennsylvania about it, and was like, you just need to try it. Like, I know it's a little intimidating at first, but it's awesome. I tell everybody I can, I'm like, you will not regret it. Like, it's awesome, whether you're a huge company or a small one. But yeah, I would say, if anybody has any questions, they can definitely reach out, and be happy to answer questions, or, give my opinions about things. But yeah.
So great. Well, Courtney, thank you so much. We know you have a week full of weddings ahead of you, so we'll let you get back to the studio. And I really appreciate you taking the time to share this with us.
Yeah, absolutely. It was nice to talk to you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.